All right, so in week 1, we learned how to solve a system of equations by graphing. Last week, we solved a system of equations by substitution, and this week we are going to solve using elimination. Solve using elimination. This is by far my favorite way to solve. That might be saying I'm a math teacher if I have a favorite way to solve a system of equations. But anyways, so yesterday we talked about how you can add any two equations together and you can subtract any two equations if you would like. So I'm just going to start off with an example. We'll see if you notice anything. All right, so let's say we start off with 3x plus 4y equals 12. And then, so that's our first equation. And let's say our second equation is, let's do 5x minus 4y equals 4. Okay, so yesterday we talked about adding two equations. So let's go ahead and let's just try it and see what happens. So I always put a big plus sign up front and I put a bar underneath, just like we did yesterday. So I'm going to add these together. So this is similar to pizza and pop. So I have, like, pretend this is your pizza, this is your drink. The only difference is you can't technically have a negative drink, but that's okay. It applies for all equations. All right, so if I add 3x plus 5x, I get 8x. If I add what's 4y plus a negative 4y, okay, well, that's just 0y. And then if I add 12 plus 4, I get 16. Okay, so now if I look at this, I have 8x equals 16. And how do I solve for x? Well, I just draw the line down. And I divide both sides by 8. And I end up with x equals 2. And I have my x coordinate. So remember, you always write your answer as a coordinate pair. So I already know that my x is 2. Okay, so if my x is 2, I need to find out what y is. So now you go back and you do substitution. So I can take this 2, which is x, and I can substitute it in for either the top equation or the bottom equation, and it doesn't matter which one. So I'm going to pick the top one because it doesn't have any negatives in it. So I'm going to take this 2, which is my x value, and I'm going to plug it in for this top equation. So let me just rewrite what I have. So I have 3x plus 4y equals 12. And I have my x is 2. So I'm just going to write x equals 2. So I'm going to substitute this 2 because it's an x. I'm going to put it in for that x right there. So when I substitute, it's going to look like 3. And then instead of x, I put a 2 plus 4y equals 12. I apologize right now that we're going to get a decimal, but that's okay. I distribute the 3, so 3 times 2 is 6 plus 4y equals 12. Draw the line down the middle. Subtract 6 from both sides. And I get 4y equals 6. Divide both sides by 4. You end up with y equals, if you put 6 divided by 4 into your calculator, you just get 1.5. And then this answer goes right here. So 1.5. And that is an example of elimination. So if you look at the problem that we started with, notice how, okay, so these just gave us 8. The thing that gave us the 0, they were the same number, they had the same variable, but the only difference was they had different signs. So if you ever have it where they have different signs, but everything else is the same, elimination is a great choice because they're going to cancel each other out. So let's try another one. Okay, so the next one we're going to try, let's go ahead and do negative 6x plus 5y equals 1, and 6x plus 4y equals negative 10. Okay, so if we talk about what we just did, so let's look at the y's first. So these both have a y. This one has a 4 and this one has a 5, so they're not going to cancel each other out if we add. Okay, this one, these both have x's. They both have a 6, and one is negative and one is positive. So it looks like elimination is a great choice. So draw the line underneath, and you're just going to put a plus sign. So we're just going to add straight down. So negative 6x plus 6, that's 0x. 5y plus 4y, that is 9y. And then 1 plus a negative 10 gives you negative 9. So we have 9y equals negative 9. Draw the line, divide both sides by 9, and you get y equals negative 1. So now we have to pick, do we want to plug it into the top or the bottom? Again, it does not matter at all. I'm going to pick the bottom because the x and the y are both positive. So I'm just going to rewrite that over here. So we have 6x plus 4y equals negative 10. Then I know that y equals negative 1. So I'm just going to rewrite that over here so it's easier to see. So now we're going to use substitution. So we're going to take this negative 1 and we're going to put it in for y, because y and negative 1 are the exact same thing. So when I rewrite that, it'll be 6x plus 4, and then instead of a y, we put a negative 1 equals negative 10. So distribute this negative 4. So you'll have 6x, 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Negative, not positive. Equals negative 10. So we're going to draw the line down the middle. And we can add 4 to both sides. Bring down the 6x. Negative 4, positive 4 cancel out. Negative 10 plus 4 is negative 6. Then we divide both sides by 6, and we end up with x equals negative 1. Oops, sorry. Okay, and then don't forget, you have to write your answer as a coordinate pair. So my x value was negative 1, and my y value was also negative 1. So there's your answer. Okay, so I'm going to do one more, but I'm going to write down some steps, and we're going to follow the steps. All right, so steps, let's see. Okay, so step 1, you want to, you want to look for a term. That is exactly the same in both equations. Jeepers, I cannot spell today or ever. So you want to look for a term that is exactly the same in both equations, but one is positive and one is negative. Okay, so that's step 1. Let's do our example down here. So when I say term, all that means is it's taking a coefficient and a variable. So a coefficient and a variable that are exactly the same. So let's do 2x minus 2y equals 22. And let's do 4x plus 2y equals 38. Okay, so step 1. Look for a term that is exactly the same in both equations, but one is positive and one is negative. So these are not the same. Oh, look, these are the same. So we have a 2 and a 2 and a y and a y. And one is positive and one is negative. Positive, negative. Step 2 is add the equations together. So step 2, add the equations together. So we'll add. So we're just going to add straight down. So we have 6x. These two things give me 0y. So that equals 50. That equals 60. Step 3 would be solve for variable. Okay, so let's solve for this. So divide both sides by 6. And we get x equals 10. Okay, so step 3 is done. Step 4 is going to be substitute. Answer from 3. So substitute your answer from step 3 into an original equation. So again, it doesn't matter which one we pick. I always like to pick the ones that are all positive. Sometimes people like to pick the ones with smaller numbers. It doesn't matter either way. So I'm going to pick this one. So I'm just going to rewrite that over here. So 4x plus 2y equals 38. Substitute your answer from 3. So my answer was x equals 10. I'm just going to write that over here. Makes it a little easier to look at. So we need to substitute this 10 in for this x because x equals 10. So when I rewrite that, I have 4, 10 plus 2y equals 38. All right, so I substituted, and then step 5 is going to be solve for variable. That was step 5. So let's see, 4 times 10 is 40 plus 2y equals 38. We're going to draw this line. We can subtract 40 from both sides. 40 minus 40 is 0, so we're left with 2y equals negative 2. Divide both sides by 2, and you get y equals negative 1. Oops, sorry again. Okay, so I solved for my variable. And then step 6 is write your answer as a coordinate pair. So our x value was 10 and our y value was negative 1, and we are done.